The Pistons played and lost their second preseason game to the New Orleans Pelicans. We're going to talk about some of my takeaways from the first two preseason games for the Detroit Pistons in today's episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast.
You are Locked On Pistons, your daily Detroit Pistons podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's the deal? Welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Pistons podcast. Per usual, I'm your host, Keke Hill. You can find me over on Twitter at Keke Hill. I want to thank you guys for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. And if you have not already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or you can leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. So, the Detroit Pistons have played two preseason games thus far, losing both of them. And there's quite a few takeaways that you can have through these two preseason games, player specific. And we'll talk about some of those in the second segment and the third segment. But the very first takeaway I want to talk about, and it's my biggest takeaway, is more team specific, more about the coaching staff, and really just about one of their schemes. And it's going to be about the defensive end of the floor. Now, throughout the offseason, we talked a lot, and I mean a lot, about how excited, or maybe not excited, but how interested or anxious I was to see if their offensive and defensive schemes and strategies changed after another year of rebuilding and another year of adding parts, and Marvin Bagley having a full offseason with the team, and adding another ball handler and Jaden Ivey, just all this kind of stuff. I just wanted to see if they would change some of the offensive and defensive philosophies, their strategy schemes. And through two preseason games, I'm not going to talk about the offensive scheme because I think at this point, we've had Dwane Casey as the coach of the Detroit Pistons for a few years now. And you can date back, going all the way back to his Toronto days. If you talk to some Toronto people, his offenses are just bland. They're not going to have tremendous creativity. So I don't think you're really going to see much change on the offensive end. So really, what we talked about in the offseason was a lot to do with the defensive scheme. Because last season, the Detroit Pistons switched, I have to assume, the most of any team in the NBA, or near the top. I don't know what stat or what site would track that stat. I've tried looking it up. I couldn't find it. I'm sure somewhere tracks it. But just going off the eyeball test, I have to assume the Pistons switched more or just as much as the top team in the NBA last season. And I really did not like that. I wanted them to try to be more creative defensively, a little bit more complex defensively. And my excuse for it, or my reasoning for why they did that last year, was they had a bunch of rookies on the team, a bunch of second-year players on the team. So, and they don't like talking a lot. If you listen to head coaches and Dwane Casey talk about, one of the things that young players struggle with the most is the fact that they don't talk. They don't like to speak out loud. And it really, if you play defense, if you play basketball, I should say, and you've played defense in any kind of structured setting, you need to be talking to each other. So my idea was that since they're young and they don't do that, you just came out with the most simple defensive scheme possible for them. And it kind of made sense. I was like, okay, makes sense. You don't want to make it too complex for them. They're not going to talk a lot. You kind of want to keep things simple. Let's just switch everything. But I thought things would change in the second season. Or maybe not the second season, I should say. I should say Cade's second season, or another season into the rebuild. And through two preseason games, it has not. It has not changed even a little bit. And honestly, I think they might be even switching more. Like it's quite annoying how much they switch. And it's not just like, I feel like a lot of times, if you have switchable wings, every team in the NBA switches to a degree. But I feel like the Pistons' biggest problem, and the thing that makes it the biggest issue on offense or on defense, is their obsession with soft switching. And if you don't know what that is, soft switching is when you're already predetermined that you're switching this. You're not even going to try to fight over the screen. You're not going to try to fight through the off-ball screen. You're not going to try to fight through the pin down. It's just immediate. You're switching every screen, no matter what, no matter the personnel, no matter the player, no matter anything, you're switching every chance you possibly. If someone crosses, you're switching. There's immediate switch, no thought about it, just straight up switching. And Antonio Daniels, who is, by the way, a member of the Locked On Network, I should have him on the podcast to ask him about this, but he's a broadcaster for New Orleans Pelicans, and he talked about it at length. And the Pelicans broadcast is amazing, by the way. I was watching the last game on the Pelicans broadcast. They're absolutely amazing. But anyways, AD was breaking it down to perfection about the negatives that come with switching absolutely everything. Again, like I said, every team's defense is going to have some level of switching to it, but the Pistons switch an absolute absurd amount, and it doesn't even make sense half the times they do switch. And there's one stat I want to bring out from the game against the New Orleans Pelicans that really shows the negative effects of switching, like how the Pistons are. They had 31 personal fouls against the New Orleans Pelicans. Marvin Bagley fouled out. Isaiah Stewart had 5. Jane Ivey had 4. Keke Cunningham fouled out. Killian had 3. And then you had a few other guys with 2, 2, 2. They get a lot of these foul calls from switching and being at a disadvantage in a mismatch. And the mismatch just punishing them and forcing a foul call. That's where a lot of these calls come from. Now, quite a few of them, especially from Marvin Bagley, was from Zion Williamson just straight up bullying his way into a foul call, which is whatever. You're going to have that happen. But if you're just absolutely soft switching every single thing, even when you have personnel out there like Corey Joseph and Killian Hayes in the backcourt, like you're constantly going to be putting Corey Joseph on a big guy who can just raise up right over him and get a layup or a hook shot back to back to back. And also what comes with that is, oh, you got Corey Joseph on a big guy. Oh, now we're going to bring a double team. What does that do? That allows the 7', 6'11" center to just pass right over the tiny guards that are double teaming him, and you get wide open threes every single time, wide open cutters every single time. Again, I don't have a problem with switching. Switching makes sense, especially if you have versatility in your lineup defensively. Like with Isaiah Stewart, it makes sense to want to switch him out and utilize his ability to stay with guards in the perimeter. But not if it means you're going to have Corey Joseph on Jonas Valanciunas every single possession. Not if it means you're going to have Corey Joseph on Zion Williamson. You have to have, there has to be some kind of more complex, or the defense has to be more complex, or at least make more sense. Have some kind of scheme into it, or the coaching staff has to do a better job of implementing something that doesn't mean switch every single time, basically. Like, dependent on the personnel. If you're switching with Trey Murphy or somebody, they're setting a screen, okay, yeah, then you can switch out. If you're the person Zion screening on ball is Keke Cunningham or Saddiq Bey, okay, yes, you can switch. But if it's Corey Joseph and Isaiah Stewart, and switching means Corey Joseph is going to be stuck on Jonas Valanciunas, probably shouldn't just automatically soft switch it. You should at least try to fight over it. It's just it's a big annoyance. It puts the Pistons defense at a major disadvantage. It did last year too. It makes no sense to me. It does. I just want to keep saying this. Switching is at the base level of almost every team's defense. So it makes sense, at least a little bit, to do. I should say it makes sense to do at least a little bit when you have versatility. But every single time, no matter the personnel, no matter who's screening, no matter what the mismatch is going to be, it makes zero sense, and it destroys your team's defense by constantly forcing them to have to double team or give up mismatches every time down the floor. It's incredibly annoying to see. And my last point on it will be James Edwards of The Athletic tweeted out that he had asked Dwane Casey about this. And he said basically what I just said, that switching is at the base level of their defense, but they do want to try to add more things to it. I'll believe it when I see it. He also went on to say that he talked with Marvin Bagley about how they have a little bit more to the switching behind the defense. And I'm just going to go ahead and take a guess. You guys can go read the Athletic article when he comes out with it today, by the time you guys listen to this on Monday. My guess is going to be that all it's going to say is that behind the switch, they want a scram switch too, which means the big guy in the opposite block like if a switch happens on the left wing, let's say, and then the Jonas Valanciunas goes down to the right block with Corey Joseph on him. Before they can get the ball to Valanciunas, they want Corey Joseph to scram to the left corner while Marvin Bagley scrams to cover the big guy who got the mismatch on him. That's basically what I'm going to assume, all the intricacies and the complexity of this defense they're talking about behind it, which isn't complex at all, and it's not going to work almost every single time. And you need really good communication on defense, and the guy you need to be scram switching with to actually be a pretty good defender, and Marvin Bagley is not going to be that. So if that's all it is behind there, the defense still is going to have a major issue. Now I'm going to be incredibly annoyed all season. I hope that they try some new things, at least try some new things in preseason. And that's something we're going to talk about with the offense in the upcoming segment. But it's preseason. You should be trying a bunch of stuff. Throw some stuff at the wall, see what sticks. Testing stuff out. These games don't count. You need to be trying a bunch of stuff and seeing, hey, maybe this will work. Let's see if we can try it for a regular season game. That's what they should be doing. I really wish they would just try drop coverage or hedging a screen or trapping it. Like, try anything. The straight switching across, no matter what personnel, literally makes zero sense. It doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. But that's all I've got with the defense, man. That was my biggest takeaway so far through 2 games, is that the defensive scheme is the exact same as last year, and it's going to be an incredible thing of annoyance for me. But anyways, when we come back, we'll talk about some of the scheme offensively and some of my issues that we've seen through 2 games for the Pistons offensively, and why there seems to be a little bit more hope for the offensive scheme. We'll talk about that. But first, I have to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, LinkedIn. These days, every new potential hire can feel like high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available in the entire world. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps find the right people for your team faster and for free. Heck, how do you guys think Locked On found me? You don't think I had a LinkedIn account? You guys don't think they went on my LinkedIn and found me over there? You have to have one. It helps everybody out. Add your old job add your job and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on your candidates with just the right skills and experience, so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires versus leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs help you find the qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Post your job on their site for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Again, you can go over to linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free to help you find the most qualified candidates you want to talk to faster and for free. Terms and conditions apply. Head over to linkedin.com/lockedonnba. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons. Hit that subscribe button. It's the best way to support the podcast. Or you can leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, I wanted to show you guys this real quick. Look what my brother got me for. So when I got married, my brothers all got me like a present, whatever. But look what my brother got me. A nice little Hooper action figure. I'm gonna have to find a way to like put it up in my background somewhere. I might get like a little shelf to put up like right behind me, so I can actually start putting some of these. I have like a few Piston things behind me, but you guys can't really see it. But yeah, I thought this thing was really cool, bro. I think it's super dope. If you guys are interested in this, I asked my brother where he got it, but yeah, I thought this was super dope, super cool. Let's go ahead and put Hooper down over here real quick though, so we can talk about some of the offensive things. We gotta get a little bit more serious, Hooper. All right. So the offensive scheme. Nowhere near as annoying as the defensive scheme, but I think that might be because I'm used to the offensive scheme by now with Dwane Casey. And I'll say this. I will say that I think the offensive scheme will look different once, at least a little bit different once the regular season starts, because I'm going to go ahead and spoil this now. I'm never going to talk about him in the final segment. We'll talk about some more players, but Keke Cunningham looks like he just doesn't care about preseason. Like, he's not even really trying out there. It looks pretty clear to me that he's just taking a step back and letting his teammates run the show and trying to get a feel for them and what they're trying to do and what they like. He's given Jaden Ivey a lot of freedom to do what he wants to do in the half court, off the rebounds, in transition. Like, Cade's basically taking a back seat completely, I feel like, to everybody else on the team. And he just doesn't really seem like he cares too much about preseason, which you can talk about whether that's good or bad. I don't think anyone really cares, to be honest, about preseason. You shouldn't really that much, especially when it comes to Cade, I feel like. So I know some people want to see him play a little bit more, play with a little bit more like assertiveness in preseason, because everyone's been waiting so long for Pistons basketball. But in terms of like the big picture, I don't think anyone should care what Cade's doing in preseason. He's obviously not really caring that much. I don't think anyone should be concerned. I saw some people like trolling, talking about how, oh, Cade's taking a step back. Like, stop, please. Please stop. Please stop. It's quite clear that Cade's not caring enough about preseason. I can't blame him. The games don't count. Might as well let your teammates get some run in. So, with saying that, I think once the regular season starts, Cade will start to care, obviously, and Cade will be more of a focal point in the offense, and it'll start to look a little bit better. That's my hope, and I have to believe that's the case. I don't think they're going to let their number 1 overall pick continue to be in a backseat just because they got drafted Jane Ivey. That's not going to happen. So I think it will look a little bit different once the regular season starts. However, the offense is just way too bland, dude. It's just way excuse me. It's just way too bland, way too simplistic, and it just doesn't amount to a lot of things in the half court for this team. A lot of their stuff comes to they'll do a simple pin down, then do a dribble handoff when they don't really have any centers or big guys who are good at dribble handoffs and dribble handoff screens. So that eventually what it turns out to, it goes into a pin down, guy comes around, a dribble handoff. Oh, the dribble handoff didn't really work. Now he pulls it out and they run like a quick pick and roll from whatever side of the wing they're on. And then hopefully they get to the paint and can make a kick out. Like, that's all it is. And I'm not going to sit here and act like that NBA offense is every single down or running the most complex sets every single time. But they have more creativity to it than this. And I'm talking about when I say creativity to it, I mean like, you guys remember the game last year against the Dallas Mavericks when I came on the podcast and I said, hey, this was the most creative I've seen the offense go in my – oh, not the Dallas Mavericks, the Utah Jazz. I said, this is the most creative I've seen the offense ever be. Keke Cunningham was coming down, finding the mismatch. I actually think he was picking on Bojan, his now teammate. But they were coming down, getting Bojan's guy in the screen, getting Bojan switched on Cade, spacing the floor out, and then letting Cade just go ISO at the top of the key and break his guy down. And I came on here and said, wow, look at Dwane Casey. That's the most creative I've seen this offense. They don't even do like stuff like that, hunting out mismatches. Then we found out, or I at least forgot and remembered that, hey, that was actually Rex Kalamian coaching that game. Who knew? But anyways, my point is, even doing something as simple as that would add some more creation to this offense. And they didn't do that a lot last year at all. It was just really that game. I don't remember them doing it much outside of that game. Like, you have a guy in Jane Ivey, who we'll talk about a little bit later, and Keke Cunningham, who I feel like if you get a big guy switched onto them, and if you hunt mismatches with them, they're probably going to win more times than they'll lose. And I feel like that should be a part of the offense a little bit more. I literally just something as simple as that I feel like would add some more creativity to it. I don't think that they should continue with this DHO so much because they don't have guys who are really good at the DHOs. So it's like hard to run it. It just basically wastes time on the shot clock. The offense just is really bland, man. I will say, as a positive though, we got to see Stu and Bagley start together, and I was quite impressed with Isaiah Stewart and his awareness in spacing. And we talked about this a lot with Isaiah Livers this past season. In the offseason, we talked about it a lot. That Isaiah Livers is so good, not just because he's a great team defender, not just because he's a great shooter, but he knows how to space the floor and where to be at all times. That's a real important part of an offense. You need to have players, not just who are good shooters, but know how to space the floor and where they need to be at when a guy drives a specific area. For example, I always give this easy example for you guys. It's the most simplistic one of the first things I learned in high school basketball. If a guy's driving, let's say he's on the left wing and he takes it left side and drives baseline, if you're on the right wing, you need to immediately slide down to the right corner to give him an outlet pass and space the floor correctly. That's like one of the most easiest ones. But it's not just sliding down to the corner, knowing where to rotate to, start hovering around. When a guy drives down middle, maybe you should slide a little bit to the left, go towards the top of the key, slide towards the right, move towards the right wing a little bit more. Like, you have to know how to space. I actually was really impressed with how Stu was spacing the floor. He was knowing where to be at, and he hit a three or two. So Stu is giving me reason to believe that he actually may be able to space the floor. Now, obviously, he has to hit the threes. It doesn't matter about him knowing where to be. He has to hit them. He did hit 2 of his 5 3-point attempts. I also like the fact that he's getting them up with confidence and not shying away from shooting them. If Stu's able to have that kind of awareness of knowing where to be, how to properly space the floor so there are driving lanes and there are lob threat opportunities and dump off opportunities for a guy like Marvin Bagley, that I think actually has looked really good. The best two-man, big man lineup they've tried, really. I think Stu and Bagley look the best so far. Now they have a few more preseason games. They're probably going to try out a few more front court combinations. I'd assume that they're going to try. I'm assuming that I'm going to take a guess and say their next combination they'll try is Bojan and Bagley at the 5. So that's going to be my assumption there. But yeah, I liked what I saw from Bagley and Stu, and it said a lot about Stu to me. Stu is the one that really impressed me the most. Like I said, with the spacing, knowing where to be, and being able to hit 2 of his outside shots. Hopefully, he's able to do that in the regular season once that comes around. That would be great. That would be great for the offense, and definitely would help space the floor for guys like Jaden Ivey and Keke Cunningham, who are great at getting into the paint and finding the guys outside. So we'll talk about some more specific player takeaways when we come back, though. But first, I had to tell you guys about one of our sponsors, BetOnline.net. BetOnline.net is your number one source for football betting needs and basketball info this season. Find all the latest player developments, team matchups, news, podcasts, and in-depth articles and analysis on every game that you can find. And as always, BetOnline remains your continued source for all your sport wagering information, with live betting and up-to-the-minute scores for every sport that's out there. The fastest and easiest way to check out all your favorite games and events, including MLB, MMA, boxing, golf, NFL, NBA, any sport you can think of, name it, it's on there. Head to BetOnline.net and use your mobile device to learn more about their trends in action today. If you head over there now and you head to the basketball section, you can see odds to win the championship, 6th man of the year, who's going to win MVP, who's going to win most improved, who's going to get the top pick next year, who's going to be the worst team in the league. All that kind of stuff you can already get a head start at BetOnline.net. Head to BetOnline.net right now and use your mobile device to learn more about their trends in action today. BetOnline, where the game starts. So I want to thank you guys again for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. If you haven't already, head to the YouTube channel at Locked On Pistons, hit that subscribe button, or you guys, my God, I stumbled over my words there. You can leave a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. That's another great way to support the podcast. All right, so my first immediate player takeaway from the first 2 preseason games is Jaden Ivey is very electric. He has things he needs to work on in the half court, and this has been my takeaway with him since we saw him in the summer league, since we started talking about him before the draft. He is going to be the Pistons' leading free throw drawer on the team. He's going to attempt the most free throws on this team. I don't think it's going to be particularly close. In this game against the New Orleans Pelicans, he shot 9 free throws in this game. He made all 9 of them, which is great to see. Again, he's just going to draw so many fouls because he's too explosive. His first step is way too explosive, and guys can rarely beat him to the spot. And I'm going to continue talking about this. I'm going to be the guy you guys, when you guys see it happen in a game, you guys are going to think of me because I'm going to be drilling it into your guys' heads. Jaden Ivey might draw the most fouls on beating guys to the spot than anybody in the NBA. Not shooting fouls, not, getting beat up at the rim. I'm talking about he beats a guy on his first step. The defender tries to beat him to his spot, but it's late, so it ends up bumping him because Jaden's already there. He's going to lead the league in those kind of fouls because he's just so explosive. And you saw a lot of that happen against the Pelicans. He just gets knocked off his spot because defenders can't keep up with him. He draws a foul right there, and he gets the opposing team in foul trouble quickly or in the bonus. And when he's around the rim, he doesn't shy away from contact at all. He accepts it all. Heck, half the time he tries dunking on you or going right through you. So he's going to draw a lot of free throws, and that is something that the Pistons have desperately needed on this team because it doesn't seem like Keke Cunningham gets the respect of the officials ever, at least last season. They need somebody. Getting free throws is a major part of your offense. You need to get easy shots, easy buckets, and free throws is a key part of that. Being able to get free throws and layups. You need to be able to do that, and Jaden Ivey's going to help in both those areas. You can already see that. Now, he's going to need to improve in the half court. He shot 2 of 12 from the floor. He's going to have to improve in the in-between area. We already knew that. He's a rookie. He's going to have to improve on that for years to come, not just this season. That's going to be something he has to work on for his whole career, for the first few years of his career to get to where he wants to get to. But where he is right now, I think is already going to help the Pistons because he's the only player on their team that they have like this. The guy that's this explosive, this controlled when he's driving to the rim. A guy who can draw this many free throws, put the defense, on their heels, and continue to draw free throws. He's probably the only guy on the team that can do that, and it gives them a completely different dimension to their offense. So I like what I've seen from Jaden Ivey. He has things he has to improve on, but what he does bring already, the team needs, and I really like that. Also, he had 7 turnovers, which absolutely is really bad. He has to cut down on that a lot, but I actually think he does a pretty good job of making the first read. I don't think he doesn't make the great second, third reads, high-level reads, but he doesn't need to with how explosive he is and how easily he gets into the paint. As soon as a guy sucks in, he can make that first read instantly to the guy in the corner or the guy in the wing. He makes that quick read easy. The next level reads he has to improve on, but like I said, a guy that explosive probably doesn't need to be able to make those high-level reads because his explosion is going to draw enough defensive attention when he's basically only going to need to make that first read. So, yeah, I've liked what I've seen from Jaden Ivey. He's going to be good for the Pistons. Outside of that, I think everybody else on the team has I think they have a lot of things to improve on. Now, I just said Jaden Ivey has stuff to improve on too, but I think he's obviously been the most impressive Piston in the first 2 games. Everybody else, I can't say like the same for. So I'm going to just X out Cade because, like I said earlier, I think Cade's just not even really trying. He doesn't seem like he's really interested, to be honest. And he's just letting his teammates do their thing. So outside of him, actually, you know what? Stu, I think Stu has been fine. His struggles are still his struggles, finishing around the rim, catching the ball around the rim. It's honestly shocking to me how much he struggles at catching the ball around the rim and in the dunker spot. That's still a struggle for him, but he's showing a willingness to shoot the outside ball, his confidence in shooting it, knowing where to be at, all that stuff. So he's been fine. I like what we've seen from Stu in that regard. Everybody else, though, they have some goods and a lot of bads. So like Saddiq Bey in this game against the New Orleans Pelicans, his decision making and his ability to hit 2-point shots continue to look like they're going to be a struggle for him, or at least they look like they're still ones right now. Now it's preseason. A lot of guys are knocking off rust. I actually should have started the episode by saying this. Guys are knocking off rust. This is their first basketball in months. This is why preseason is here, to knock off that rust and get back into the swing of things. So I don't want to read too much into the preseason. I just want to make sure I put that caveat on it. But in this Pelicans game, Saddiq shot one of 7 on all 2-pointers. And there was quite a few times when he drove the lane and an easy read was there to make a kick out or a dump off, and he just doesn't make those passes. If he gets the ball in his hands, the ball's going up. And he's just not efficient enough and not that good of a scorer for him to do that. He's at 6 of 17 from the floor, 5 of 10 from deep, but 6 of 17 from the floor. He's just not that good of a scorer and not efficient enough to be able to play like that. He has to make the right read. He has to be smarter with the ball in his hands when he gets into the paint. And that's something that he's been trying to work on. And I've said that he needs to work on through 2 years. I think it's going to continue to be something he has to work on. So hopefully we see him improve on that moving forward. And heck, maybe he looks better next preseason game. But in this preseason game, it looks like it's something that he's still struggling with and something he still is going to have to work on. Marvin Bagley defensively just still is not great. Bojan is what he is. He's a vet. I don't think we need to take away anything from him. He shot 2 of 8 from the deep in this game. But I don't think anyone cares. He has many years of proving he's a sniper. I don't think anyone's going to freak out over that. So there's not really anything to talk about with Bojan. Killian Hayes shot 1 of 7 from the floor. I don't like that he had 5 of his 7 attempts from beyond the arc. I think that's bad. I know he tweaked the shot, and I know they've talked about they want him to be able to space the floor, which he has to do, yes. But that doesn't mean he needs to be going away from what he looked so improved on doing the final 2 months of the season, which was slashing and getting to the basket. That still should be where he tries to do the most, and that's what he did in the first game of the preseason. He looked really good. So I don't like that he took 5 threes. He missed all 5 of them, which is not good in and of itself. But the fact he took 5 threes, I don't like. He did have 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks. But I think everyone is aware that Killian can stuff up the stat sheet like that, doing all the other things. He needs to improve and show us that he can be a better scorer in the half court. And I don't like that he took 5 threes. He needs to be trying to do more at the rim or getting to the rim. So Yeah, Killian had through 2 games it has been up and down. It has one game where you can be pretty cool with, next game not so cool with. And then everybody else has just been a bunch of Corey Joseph, Isaiah Livers, and he shot. He's not having a great preseason. I would say but he just brings what he brings. Like what you're getting with Isaiah Livers. Either he's gonna hit some of his threes that night, or he's gonna have an off night. Like it's one of those things. He's gonna do the same thing nonetheless, whether he's making or missing. So that's my player takeaway so far through 2 preseason games. I do want to say again, it is preseason. They're not gonna rust off, so I wouldn't read too much into anything. But you can have some takeaways. Just don't hold it to your chest too hard. Just be ready to let go of some of those as the regular season comes along the way. That's my takeaways so far as a team, schematically and player wise through 2 games. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below or over on Twitter at Keke Hill. That's all I've got for you guys today. Thank you for making Locked On Pistons your first listen of every single day. We are free and available on all your podcast platforms. Hit the subscribe button at the YouTube channel. Best way to support the podcast, or leave us a 5-star review on whatever podcast platform you are listening to this on. And until next time, I will see you guys later. Peace out, everybody, and go Pistons.